So chaos is happening right now, okay? As I sit here on stream recording a video for YouTube, we are in the midst of learning things about this incoming federal funding freeze. As of now, we do not know exactly the extent to which its devastating effects will reach. We are engaging in that very live situation right now, and obviously that is the big story of the day. For that reason, there's a lot of other things happening today that could fly under the radar as everybody is trying to make sense of, hey, will I have access to Medicaid? Will I have access to food because I'm on low income? You know, minor things like that. But one of the things that can slide under the radar, I think, is something I'm going to make a video about right now so it doesn't fly under the radar. This Republican asshole said the quiet part out loud, okay? This Republican asshole just said something beyond the pale despicable that I think even the most loyal Trump cult member can recognize as being vile and evil. Republican congressmen suggest some children receiving free school lunches should work at McDonald's instead. Rich McCormick said that the freeze on federal aid would allow the government to review all programs, including ones that provide free school lunches to low-income children. You know, free school lunches, that, you know, notoriously unpopular policy that is, you know, wherever it has been enacted. You know, definitely something that needs to be addressed. He defends the impacts of the federal aid freeze on school lunch programs. That's one thing we're seeing coming up extremely soon at time of recording. By the time you're watching it, it's probably already happened. School lunch programs receiving their federal aid being frozen, you know, feeding children by suggesting that some children should be working instead of receiving free lunch. He praised the move as a way to broadly reevaluate how the government allocates funds. Head Start, which helps provide nutritional assistance to low-income children and families, is one of the programs that could be affected. She pressed McCormick on whether he would support cutting funding for free breakfast and lunches. Before I was even 13 years old, I was picking berries in the field. Before child labor laws that precluded that. I was a paper boy, and when I was in high school, I worked my entire way through, McCormick said. You're telling me that kids who stay at home instead of going to work at Burger King and McDonald's during the summer should stay at home and get their free lunch instead of going to work? I think we need a top-down review. These are your Republican representatives. These are your Trump allies. This is your Trump policy. I don't know why I'm saying you as if I am talking directly to a Trump supporter, but I'm gonna keep doing it because I feel like I am, because I'm just that angry right now. McCormick, who was speaking from Florida, where House Republicans are holding their annual issues conference, said that the pause on federal funds gives the government a chance to see where is the money really being spent. Who can actually go and actually produce their own income? Who can actually go out there and do something that makes them have value and work skills for the future? He's talking about children. He's talking about children who should be in school. He's talking about children who should be making friends and socializing and developing skills necessary for a good and happy life, both in and out of the classroom. That's who he's talking about. They shouldn't get free school lunch. They should have to work for their lunch. They should have to work to eat. They should have to work child labor in order to not starve to death. He added, I mean, how many people got their start in fast food restaurants when they were kids versus just giving a blanket rule that gives all kids lunches in high school who are capable of going out and actually getting a job and doing something that makes them have value, makes them have value, makes them have value. Apparently, kids do not, just by virtue of being a human being who's attending school, you know, and like participating in society, the rules that society has established for them and their role within it, apparently they don't necessarily have value unless they work at McDonald's, thinking about their future instead of thinking about how they're going to sponge out the government when they don't need to. Sponging out the government. Children eating food is sponging out the government, according to this incumbent administration and its supporters. Great, great. Longer document sent to federal agencies and attended by NBC News requested details on thousands of programs that provide financial assistance. School meals for low-income students were among the programs on the list. McCormick said the government doesn't give people the ability to dig themselves out and instead penalize them for actually working and actually keep them on welfare. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. You're going to have to logic me through that, okay? Because I want to hear you explain exactly how that works. How does giving students food prevent them from escaping welfare? I don't like. They're students. They're going to school. Okay, an 8-hour-a-day commitment already, plus homework, plus extracurricular commitments, plus social lives, because socialization while in high school, while in middle school, is incredibly important. They have full lives just by being a student already, and they are already on the path to being able to acquire more money for themselves into the future, okay? They are developing skills that can then be used in their workplace, in their job, in the future by attending school. That's not the primary purpose of school, but it is an effect. But apparently that's not good enough, and they should work at McDonald's instead. That's the only real pathway to get out of welfare dependency. That makes no freaking sense. We need to have a top-down review so we can get people out of poverty, he says, while advocating against feeding children, adding that Americans are losing their way because the government gives people incentives to stay home and not work. I wish that were true, man. I freaking wish that were true. You want to stay home and not work? You're gonna die. You want to stay home and not work as an American? Okay, you're not gonna make it. You're not gonna have any semblance of a good life and will probably die. He also referred during the interview to RFK Jr., Trump's nominee to lead the Department of Health and Human Services. When you talk about producing not just calories but nutrition, that's what JFK Jr. is all about. What? JFK Jr.? Accidentally calling him JFK Jr. and not RFK Jr. When in history, and this is a really good question for any reporter, when in history have we had our poorest people also be our fattest people? He asked. That's for the first time here in America. Traditionally, our poorest people live very skinny and very undernutrition. And the cause for that is feeding children school lunch. There's a lot of reasons why poverty and obesity have a lot of overlap, okay? And we can talk about that. We can talk about how grossly regulated food companies in this country are. Fast food companies, restaurants. We can talk about how, in so many ways, our economy encourages people to spend a large amount of money and spend a lot of their time, a lot of their meal time throughout the week on convenience meals that are incredibly unhealthy for them. We can talk about these things a lot, all right? But you're talking about this in response to feeding children school lunches. And he's saying this as if it's the poor person's fault for being lazy and a welfare hog. That's just not true. According to a programmed fact sheet, children can qualify for free school lunches under certain criteria, including if they participate in other federal programs such as the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, or based on their status as a homeless, migrant, runaway, or foster child. Yes, those are the children that he is going after. The children who need the food and the support the most. This is the face of the absolute villain that has said this. And the reason I wanted to make a segment over this statement specifically is because I think it is going to fly under the radar with everything else that is going on today and in the subsequent days, and hell, for the entire Trump presidency going forward. We're going to have a new beyond the pale ridiculous update on some crazy news story we wouldn't imagine possible years before. This is going to fly under the radar. A lot of things are. I'm going to try and pick out instances like this when I can, because I think instances like this show very directly just how beyond the pale evil these people are and exactly what it is that they are trying to accomplish with their policies, with their power in office. They are intentionally trying to hurt hungry children. That's it. That's it. Saying they should work at McDonald's instead. They are intentionally trying to hurt children, specifically children who need the help the most: poor, homeless, migrant, runaway, foster children. It is beyond the pale evil and extremely expected. This is in line with absolutely anything and everything else that Trump and his lackeys represent and have represented for years. This is perfectly in line with what we have been promised on the campaign trail. This is perfectly in line with what Trump has done during his first presidency and everything that he has said. This is perfectly in line with the history of Republicans before Trump, without Trump. This is who they are. They are saying it proudly, clear as day right now. They want to take food away from kids. As just one example, amidst a whole host of other examples. Of course, we're talking about the ICE raids. Of course, we're talking about how they also want there to be less brown people in this country. This is also something that can be seen with their policies on trans people. There's no benefits in banning trans healthcare, in trans affirming care, gender affirming care, I should say. There's no benefits to anyone in that. But it puts people they don't like either back into the closet or kills them. And they're perfectly okay with that. They're perfectly happy with that because, again, the goal of these people is to harm those they do not like. And who do they not like? Basically everyone who isn't a straight, cis, white, affluent male like themselves. The anti-abortion positions is another example of this. They don't actually believe that life begins at conception. Of course not. That's a ridiculous idea from the get-go. But they do know that pretending they believe in that and fighting for policy that acts as if that pretending is real and that life that has begun at conception is more valuable than the woman's, that is a very useful pathway to treating women as subhuman, treating women as a lower class in society to men, and stripping them of their rights, including bodily autonomy, but definitely not just limited to bodily autonomy. The Secretary of Defense, who has been confirmed to his position, has a history of stating that women should not serve in combat. I don't give a shit about military combat. I don't think you should either. But again, another example of them telling us exactly what this is all about. It is not about helping people. It is not about bringing prices down. It's not about reducing the size of the government because of government overreach and stuff. It never has been. They will overreach through any and all methods possible if it means they get to harm people they don't like, which is almost everyone, including children receiving free lunch while at school. There's a solution to this. It's not an easy one, nor is it one that is in a prime position to win anytime soon. There is an alternative to this. It's not the Democratic Party. It's people like me wearing the shirt that, if you're a conservative, probably scoffed at when you first clicked on this video and saw me wearing it. You're probably not watching up to this point, but I have a sales pitch to you. If you're disillusioned by stuff like this, which I consider my job to do for you, help disillusion you for you, right? Do you want a world that actually does prioritize the well-being of everybody, where disagreements between us is about how exactly we go about creating that better world and not whether or not we should fight for it to begin with, where feeding children at school, especially those who are most disadvantaged, is considered a given. And if you have a family, we want to protect that family above and beyond everything else, despite conservatives' lies and pretending that that is what they're fighting for, pretending that they are the party of the working family, despite everything we just covered in this video. Do you want an actual political ideology that prioritizes your family and you as a worker? You can call it whatever it is you want. You can call it socialism. It's become a dirty word. You probably don't want to. You can call it democratic socialism. You can call it leftist. You can ignore all of these labels and if you want, and just say genuinely pro-worker, genuinely pro-family, genuinely pro-child. Whatever labels you want to throw out, okay? There are policies and people fighting for policies that are the opposite of exactly what I had just covered. We're out here. We have no institutional power, but we are out here doing what we can, and we need numbers, we need support, and we are more than ready to talk to you about what that means and what that looks like. And if you're somebody who is already of the same mind as me, who doesn't need any convincing, it's time to get active. These are the people who are in power, and they're not going to stop at gloating about children going hungry. They're going to push this further and further and further and further. So, if you are already in a line with me, ideologically speaking, and you need a call to action to start organizing your own local community, to join an organization, to start doing what needs done to protect people from what's coming, consider this your call to action. That thing you've been considering doing for a while to help out your local community, do it. This is your push to do it. We need you.